Flashback Friday.
Now, let's transition to Flashback Friday and let's rev it up. Let's go ahead and jump into the time machine.
What we're gonna do now is go back.
The obligatory "I just stepped out of a time machine" cough signifies that we've just stepped out of the time machine and oh my gosh, it's 2007. Man. Well, let's see what we got going on here in 2007, shall we? The average price of gasoline, $2.78. God damn. That was 21 cents up from the year previous. And I remember in those days, man, it was nothing for the gas to get up there around $3. And for those of you who know, man, there were some times when we were up over $3, man. It was rough on the gas tank, man. It was rough on the pockets. $2.78 per gallon. Yikes. Top 5 grossing movies of 2007. Number 5, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Don't ask me what number in the installment of the Harry Potter series that is. But as every Harry Potter movie, it did really well. Number 4, Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End. Again, don't ask me what number in that series that is, but much like Harry Potter, every one of those damn Pirates of the Caribbean movies does pretty damn well. Number 3, the first of what would be about 3 or 4 Transformers movies, okay? Transformers, the original. That was a really good movie, man. Number 2, Shrek the Third. I don't even remember that Shrek, to be honest with you. But did pretty damn good. Grossed the second highest in 2007. And the number 1 grossing movie of 2007 is Spider-Man 3. Okay? So I just want to add in one honorable mention. The 6th top grossing movie of 2007, The Bourne Ultimatum, was the 3rd in the series of the Bourne series. And I must say, that was probably the best of the 3. And let me just go ahead on the record and say, if you're talking about sequels and the best series and, you know, when you're talking about movies with multiple installments, you won't find a better series than the Bourne series. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Anyway, the U.S. president in 2007, you guessed it, George W., as in George W. Bush. He was kind of winding down his second term, kind of just playing out the string, if you will, of his second and final term as United States president. Winner of the Super Bowl that year, Super Bowl 41. Colts versus Bears. Of course, you already know. You already know. It was the Indianapolis Colts who won Peyton Manning's only Super Bowl in Indianapolis, 29-17 in Miami. Remember, it was rainy. It was nasty. It was a very forgettable Super Bowl, to be honest with you. But the one thing I do remember from that Super Bowl, well, 2 things I remember from that Super Bowl. One was Devin Hester taking the opening kickoff to the crib. That was exhilarating. I don't think we've ever seen that happen again since. And then the other thing I remember was Reginald Wayne being wide ass open down the field on a poorly thrown ball by Peyton Manning that he had to wait on, but he was so open, there wasn't a Bear defender within 10 yards of him, and he was able to catch it, turn around, re-accelerate, and get into the end zone in what was a torrential downpour at that time. But yeah, that was an unforgettable or a very forgettable Super Bowl, but that was your Super Bowl winner in Super Bowl 41. Me, at that time in 2007, little old me, Louie T. Well, I was a wandering aimlessly college student in my 3rd year, trying to figure out what life had in store for me. And I hadn't quite figured out what I wanted to do with my life yet. And so I was just wandering aimlessly, as many young adults do. And so Eventually I would figure things out, but I'm still on that journey, man. But, man, those were the good old days. All right. And that takes us to the 2007 NFL Draft. Oh, man. Boy, oh, boy. Now, who presided over this draft in 2007? None other than good old Roger Goodell was making his first appearance, presiding over his first NFL draft as newly crowned NFL commissioner. So this was his first year as NFL commissioner. Paul Tagliabue had just stepped down. Roger Goodell had been promoted. He had been given the task of being this league's commissioner. We didn't know that he would stink at the job, but hey, it is what it is. And this draft here in 2007 has been regarded by many as the best draft of the modern era. Now, I don't believe that to be the case. Okay, there are people that swear by the 2007 draft, and you'll find out why here in a second, and you can agree or disagree. I myself, first of all, can't elevate a draft that didn't have a number one overall draft pick that hit to the top of my list. I just can't. Sorry, can't do it. But for me, the 2011 draft is the best draft ever. And there will never be a draft that supersedes that draft. I won't say never. Okay. Never say never. A wise woman taught me that. But right now, I find it hard to believe that you'll get as many superstars, future Hall of Famers, and guys in one draft as you did in 2011. So this draft is pretty damn good. I'm not going to lie, but 2011 is the draft for me. So with that being said, let's go through this draft and see what we got here. So I'm going to read every single selection in the first two rounds, and then we'll kind of skim through the remaining 4 or 5 rounds of the draft and see if there are any notable names there. So with that being said, you start the 2007 draft with Oakland Raiders quarterback Jamarcus Russell as your number 1 overall pick out of LSU. We know he turned out to be one of the biggest busts in NFL history. But a lot of people swore by Jamarcus Russell in those days, had a big bowl game versus Notre Dame. And his pro day still goes down as one of the greatest pro days in pro day history. Mike Mayock tells the story every time. He says, that's the greatest pro day I've ever seen with these eyes. Jamarcus Russell, I think he threw the football 70 yards from his knees. He was ultra impressive. He was accurate. But I can tell you right now, if Jamarcus Russell were put into a time machine, the same time machine I just got into, and if I was able to pull Jamarcus Russell into the time machine with me from 2007 and bring him back to 2019 and put him into the 2020 draft with all of his credentials and all of his game tape, I can tell you right now that Jamarcus Russell would not go number 1 overall. Here's why. There's a level of scrutiny that goes with the quarterback position that didn't exist in 2007 that exists now. All right. And yeah, there's always been a level of scrutiny and these scouts, they do their job and this, that, and the third, but it's a different level now. It's the same thing that saw Dwayne Haskins essentially be picked 15th overall. And if not for the Redskins picking him at 15, he potentially could have been out of the first round. I just don't see a guy like Jamarcus Russell with all of the things that these teams do to vet players these days. I just don't see him going number 1 overall. I would have seen teams putting him on the whiteboard and testing his knowledge, and I really think he would have drawn some red flags and he would have been pushed down some draft boards. I don't think he would have went number 1 overall, but all it took was one. And remember, he was selected number 1 overall, not just because of his abilities, but Al Davis was the owner of the Raiders then. He was still alive and well and kicking, and Al loved his big-armed quarterbacks. He loved the guys that could sling it, and no one could sling it further than Jamarcus Russell. So all it took was one. Just so happens that the team that was that one was at the top of the draft in the Oakland Raiders, and they needed a quarterback. And I always would pick with my buddy because he's an Oakland Raiders fan, and the guy that went next in the draft is a Hall of Fame football player, and you could have had him, but you didn't. But hindsight's 20/20, always. Anyway, speaking of that guy, want to hear more of this and other Louie T Network podcast episodes? Click the link below.
Louie T Network.